The day the Vance family went bankrupt, Harold and Martha were imprisoned, Ethan and Owen were sent to Saipan, and Amy pleaded with me on her knees. In my previous life, I desperately tried to save them and even urged Marcus to seek help from Sage, only to discover she was the one who got away. A secret he had kept for years. He didn't appear until the company employees had their fingers severed, and Sage tragically died in a car accident. Just before he pushed me towards a death sentence, he said, "You forced me to come back. Go atone for Sage's death." Reborn into this life, I watched indifferently as they became entwined on the island resort, until Harold and Martha died mysteriously and suddenly, and Ethan and Owen were tortured and dismembered. Then it was his turn to go mad, after and Martha in prison. Marcus, who vacationing with his sweetheart, went with regret. Van's stock evaporated overnight. Its corporate building was sealed. Harold and Martha were thrown into prison, and Ethan and Owen were sent to Saipan. Amy was so desperate she flew in from the country and knelt down before me, pleading with me to find a way to save the family. In the previous life, to save the entire family, I pleaded desperately everywhere, raised funds for the debts, and even told Marcus to find his old college friend, Sage, because she was the best prominent lawyer in Riverwood. But I hadn't expected that this so-called old college friend was actually Marcus's childhood sweetheart, and they were on a resort island at the time. It wasn't until all the key employees of Vance had their fingers severed that he finally arrived belatedly. Harold and Martha were bailed out, and Ethan and Owen were rescued safely, but Sage got into a car accident on her way back to the hotel. Run over by a heavy truck and disfigured beyond recognition, Marcus outwardly seemed calm and composed, living a beautiful and peaceful life with me, but he framed me on the day my new company opened. In a foreign country, I was sentenced to death. During our last prison visit, he said, "It's all because of you, you bitch. You urged me to come back. If it weren't for fighting this lawsuit, Sage wouldn't have died. Grace, go atone for Sage's death right now." Reborn into this life, I let Marcus and Sage have their passionate affair on the island. But when Harold and Martha died mysteriously in prison, and Ethan and Owen were tortured and dismembered, he went mad. "Grace, please, save this family. I know you can do it." I woke up with a start. I glanced at the time on my cell phone. Listening to the deafening crash and the creditors' insults from outside the mansion gates, I knew I had been reborn. It was the exact same scene as in my previous life. Amy, along with 24 key employees of Vance, knelt in unison before me. Harold and Martha had been taken by the FBI, charged with extortion. The creditors, fearing we would flee, had sent Ethan and Owen to Saipan, under immense pressure. I heard my own calm voice, completely unlike the trembling and helpless one from my previous life. "Vance owes $1 billion. Even if I knelt all over Riverwood, it wouldn't help," Amy said anxiously. "Didn't you have $100 million in dowry when you married into the family?" I merely gave a bitter smile. "Marcus took it for investments years ago, and he lost everything." "Where's the lawyer? Where's the lawyer? Didn't Marcus go find Ms. Sage?" "We don't have money for the creditors, but let's get Harold and Martha out first." Amy paced anxiously in circles. "He and Ms. Sage are on their honeymoon in Saipan. They won't be coming back to help." My expression was restrained, my voice cold, yet it was enough to silence the entire mansion. Amy's face was full of apology as she stammered, "Grace, you know everything. So, all these years, I was the only one kept in the dark. Back then, Sage was determined to get into new law school, saying that romance would hinder her studies, and she unhesitatingly dumped Marcus. Later, Marcus met me, pursued me relentlessly, and since we were well matched in family background and status and equally well off, we quickly married." Amy's words pulled me back from my memories. Harold and Martha and Ethan and Owen are in such a dangerous situation now. I refuse to believe H still be enjoying a vacation. I'll call him myself right now and urge him. I stared at the message on my cell phone, left on read, and didn't say anything. In the previous life, it wasn't that I hadn't pleaded or urged him. I cried to Marcus on the phone. "Vance is being pressured by all of Riverwood right now, and no lawyer is willing to help us. Don't you have an old college friend? Please ask her for help. We'll write an IOU for the legal fees, and I'll pay her double later." But it wasn't until I knelt down to Marcus on a video call that he finally brought Sage and slowly made their way to Riverwood. We lost the lawsuit, and I could only use the funds originally intended to pay off debts as bail money for Harold and Martha. The shouting and cursing from outside the mansion pulled me back to reality. "Amy, if you think you can get Marcus to listen, Then go ahead. I turned and entered the study, hearing the employees murmuring amongst themselves behind me. I heard Marcus and Ms. Sage got their marriage certificate in Saipan, but that's not recognized in Riverwood, so that's bigamy, right? Oh please, Marcus and the one named Sage never truly broke up. It seems they even have an illegitimate daughter. Shh, keep your voice down. I sat quietly in the study, my mind racing. In my previous life, when I was kneeling to creditors and pleading desperately for loans from friends, Marcus was messing around with Sage. Thinking of this, the ballpoint pen in my hand was almost crushed. How I longed to dissolve Vance on the spot. But 80% of my hard work and dedication was poured into it. It would be easy for me to just walk away, but what about the employees who sacrificed for the company? Now, all of Riverwood was pressuring Vance, and having worked here would be a stain on their record, making it difficult to find another job. I couldn't abandon them. I gulped down a lot of iced water to calm myself. I could ignore Harold and Martha and Ethan and Owen, but Vance was framed, there was no fraud involved, and I had to win this lawsuit. My money. The employees' hard-earned money. I would recover every single cent. Send out the notice. All data from Vance must be migrated within 2 hours. Go to the basement. It's safe there. I arranged everything methodically. As the employees were about to head to the basement, Amy came in, her face tear-stained, holding her cell phone. When will the lawyer arrive? Has gotten on the plane? Amy shook her head bitterly, looking troubled. In my previous life, when Marcus was unreachable, I was so anxious, I was frantic and couldn't eat a single grain of rice. Now, I see myself as nothing but a clown. I asked Amy, tell me what happened. Amy wiped away her tears. We did get in touch, but said that Vance is the richest family in Riverwood. How could it possibly vanish overnight? He said you were jealous he and Ms. Sage were on vacation. So you made up lies to trick him into coming back. The employees who had been packing froze. Are you speaking sense? Marcus's parents are in prison, and his brothers have been sent to a place like that. Does he think this is a trap? We actually thought he went to get a lawyer, but he's vacationing with his childhood sweetheart. Grace knelt all over Riverwood and the prisons for the company, and Marcus is taking his mistress on vacation. As they spoke, the sound of the mansion's main gate being broken down came from outside, followed by gunshots. They had guns. Immediately after, the house phone rang. Amy answered it at once, and her face changed drastically. It turned out Martha had suffered a heart attack in prison and was in a coma. Grace, why don't we use some money to bail out Harold and Martha first? The debts are a bottomless pit. We'll never finish paying them. Amy fell to her knees, crying uncontrollably as she pleaded with me. In the previous life, after I bailed out Harold and Martha, Martha wailed loudly at Sage's funeral, my good girl, my good child, you saved our whole family. Without you, we'd still be in prison. How can our Vance family ever repay what we owe you? What a family misfortune. We married a disastrous daughter-in-law who ruined Vance like this. Without her, we wouldn't have been framed, nor would you have been dragged into this. Vance couldn't even break into the top 10 in Riverwood initially. It was I who single-handedly revived the company with my dowry and connections, turning it into the wealthiest in Riverwood. Such a huge disaster occurred, and I was the one pleading desperately everywhere, saving the entire family, only to be labeled disastrous by Martha. I gazed steadily at Amy and said calmly, the money is still useful. There are thousands of employees in the company whose salaries need to be paid this month, debts being demanded by creditors, and if Sage doesn't come, I'll still have to go to Texas to hire a lawyer. Everywhere requires money. Amy grew anxious. You've been in this family for 5 years. Harold and Martha already treat you like their own daughter. Martha has suffered a heart attack now. If anything happens to her, will you take responsibility? What's more, you are Marcus's lawfully wedded wife, the mistress of Vance. Vance, the company's name says it all. You cannot escape blame. I scoffed. How dare she even mention Vance? I still remembered when Marcus put contraband in my car. The FBI said I could avoid the death penalty if I paid $500 million in bail, but threatened my family's lives, forcing me to sign divorce papers in prison, making me leave with nothing. The agreement, in black and white, stated Vance would be renamed Vance, and Grace would leave with nothing. He said, Vance's success today is all my doing. You only caused trouble for the company. You deserve what you got today." And his two brothers, Ethan and Owen, relentlessly spread scandalous rumors about me at school. "That sister-in-law of mine is already a slut. She doesn't deserve my brother at all. She's a curse on the Vance family." In my previous life, my knees were raw from kneeling, and my hair turned white overnight from stress. All I saved was a family of ungrateful wretches. The next morning, the FBI reported that Martha had died inside, asking us to claim her body. Not only that, Harold had been constantly throwing up blood since midnight last night. Amy had already broken down, trembling and screaming with bloodshot eyes. "I've lost my mom. I can't lose my dad. I'm going to Saipan right now to personally bring back that despicable pair." Amy pleaded desperately to the creditors in the yard. "I'm going to Saipan to get money from Marcus. I'm absolutely not running away. My brothers are still in the mansion. Please let me go." The creditors saw my car still in the yard, and only after I waved from the second-floor balcony did they grudgingly let Amy leave, but hadn't even reached the airport when her car was surrounded. It was unclear if they were enemies or creditors, but they first sexually assaulted Amy, then took all her valuables and documents, drove away the Lamborghini, transferred all her life savings, which even included the college fund for her 3 children back home. They also cut off one of her hands. Who exactly did our Vance family offend when was brought back by passersby? She was very weak, and where her severed limb was bandaged, it was still oozing blood. With her intact hand, she pulled a wallet from her pocket. "They left this at the scene. Take a look." I opened the wallet and saw an intimate photo. Arthur, the head of Arthur's company, and Sage. The background was designer sheets. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Sage had an undefeated record in legal circles, but in the previous life, she specifically lost that lawsuit. It turned out she had a clandestine relationship with Vance's enemies. But how exactly had Vance offended Arthur's company to be so ruthlessly targeted? "Your brother slept with Arthur's woman, and that implicated our entire Vance family." Amy's words brought everything into clear focus for me. The employees' faces were pale with anger, utterly furious. They had never imagined that the price of not daring to go home, not daring to leave, and nearly losing their jobs was caused by their boss's scandalous affair. Now the entire company was in a desperate situation, and the boss they had always trusted was fooling around with his childhood sweetheart on a resort island. Seeing the employees' aggrieved expressions and tightly clenched fists, I remembered in my previous life how, because of Marcus's tardiness, the creditors chopped off employees' fingers to intimidate me. I watched the blood flowing like a river on the ground, the screams piercing the air above the mansion. My heart was being ripped apart, wishing I could bear all of it for the employees in this life. I must make Marcus see with his own eyes what karma truly means. Having spent a day in trembling apprehension, the FBI reported again that Harold had died suddenly in prison. Amy fainted directly. It took the family doctor half a day to revive Amy. Just then, Ethan and Owen were brought into the yard by a group of masked men. The leader pulled out a chainsaw and said, "Our boss only wants Marcus's life. Where is Marcus? Hand over Marcus, and I'll let the 2 boys go. 1 for 2, it's a good deal for you." It wasn't until this moment that I finally understood the full scope of the situation. Marcus slept with Sage and offended Arthur. As the wealthiest Chinese man in California, Arthur could ruin Vance as easy as turning over his hand. He manipulated things behind the scenes to bankrupt Vance, imprison Harold and Martha, and kidnap the brothers, all to force Marcus to appear. The creditors were one group, partners and brand representatives, the ones who caused Harold and Martha to die, Amy to lose a hand, and controlled Ethan and Owen were another group, the orchestrators of this whole affair, Arthur and Arthur's company. I said to the kidnappers, "Who you want to kill is your business. It has nothing to do with me." Amy stared at me in shock. "Even if Marcus wronged you, Ethan and Owen did nothing wrong. You can't look on and do nothing." Ethan and Owen cried desperately in fear. "Grace, please. We don't want to die. Save us." I stood inside the French doors on the first floor, holding a walkie-talkie, and slowly spoke to Ethan and Owen in the yard. "They don't want money. They want your brother. Your brother is having a good time with his mistress right now. I can't save you." Marcus was still nowhere to be seen, and the kidnappers showed no mercy. They started the chainsaw and, amidst Ethan and Owen's screams, sawed off their arms. Blood splattered across the yard, and the employees covered their eyes. Amy knelt down and pleaded with me, tugging at my shoe with her one hand. Grace, your connections are so wide, you must have a way. Are you just going to watch our whole family become cripples? I stared steadily at the bloody scene in the yard and said, they want Marcus, what can I do? Not everything can be solved with money. Amidst renewed screams, the kidnappers were about to start the chainsaw again, aiming for Ethan and Owen's legs if doesn't show up soon. I'll show you how a person is tortured and dismembered, the kidnapper said viciously as he finished speaking. A luxury car drove into the yard. Inside were Marcus and Sage. Their faces were flushed, and they were clearly still somewhat unclear about the situation, until the loud roar of the chainsaw sounded, and Marcus watched with his own eyes as it fell onto Ethan and Owen's legs. No, Marcus, the coward, didn't even dare to get out of the car. He picked up the walkie-talkie and shouted into the yard, his voice carrying a crying tone. Grace, what are you doing? I was wrong. I shouldn't have cheated. I beg you, save my brothers. You can't look on and do nothing, I said coldly. Now you're desperate. What were you doing when Amy and I made hundreds of calls and sent thousands of messages? They said, 1 for 2, you go with them, and they'll release your brothers, help yourself. If you want to save your brothers, just get out of the car, through the windshield. I could see Marcus's face was pale and he was timid and hesitant. I spoke into the walkie-talkie. Listen, Marcus is here. This is your deal with him. It has nothing to do with me. Marcus looked at the blood all over the yard, trembling uncontrollably, wishing he could hide in Sage's arms. Screech, they roared again, and the kidnappers, with swift strokes, cut off Owen and Ethan's ears. Marcus couldn't take it anymore. Just as he was about to open the car door, 2 gunshots rang out, and the FBI arrived. The kidnappers could only abandon their tools and fled in their cars in a panic. Owen, Ethan. Marcus rushed to his 2 bloody brothers, crying his eyes out, uncontrollably, but he was only moving himself. Yet his 2 dying brothers' eyes were filled with disappointment and resentment. The ambulance arrived quickly. Clumsy white nurses and doctors frantically searched for severed limbs in the yard, then carefully lifted Ethan and Owen onto the stretcher. The FBI agents performed forensic analysis and took statements after the police and ambulance left. Marcus lunged at me like a madman, cursing, Grace, you bitch! Before his slap could land, his movements froze as something cold and hard pressed against his abdomen. Marcus recoiled a few steps in fright. Grace, why didn't you make it clear on the phone? If you had explained, would I have come so late? Sage echoed from the side. Grace, you truly are a venomous woman. Did you collude with outsiders to harm Vance? I've heard that for years you've controlled the Vance family's business and wouldn't let Marcus touch it. Who else but you could have caused such a colossal disaster? I scoffed, pointing at Amy's wound. Sage, do you know how Amy lost her hand? Sage's expression was visibly flustered, but she quickly masked it. Who knows who you had cut it off? How should I know? I took out the wallet. This is from the scene where Amy was attacked. A wallet left behind by the kidnappers. Inside is a photo of you and Arthur. Before I could finish, Marcus's face already turned ugly. He had always believed Sage was devoted to him. Sage snatched the wallet and immediately ripped the photo to shreds. What era are we in? Photos can be easily photoshopped. You're just trying to slander me. For all these years, I've been wholeheartedly devoted to Marcus. How could I possibly be involved with Arthur? Besides, I've been in Saipan these past few days. How would I have had time to commit the crime? Grace, you don't need to be so clumsy in trying to slander me, do you? And these past few days in Saipan, Marcus and I can vouch for each other. Her words were less an explanation and more a boast. Some employees cast suspicious glances my way. Marcus pressed his advantage. Grace, you held on to the money instead of saving Harold and Martha, watching them die mysteriously in prison, and now you've watched your brothers lose their limbs. Are you trying to monopolize Vance? You had someone cut off Amy's arm, didn't you? And you photoshopped the photo, just to frame Sage and me. Grace, you're truly despicable. You'll stop at nothing for money and your own interests. He turned to the employees and started his pity play. In all these years, have I, Marcus, ever said a harsh word to any of you? Whether you were slacking off or taking leave, I never docked your pay, did I? But she always treated you as workhorses, making you work yourselves to death. He was an absentee owner. He didn't even show up for work. How dare he say such things? But some employees were clearly swayed by him, looking at me with suspicion. Listening to his accusations, I scoffed coldly. You two are truly a despicable pair made for each other. Your stories are perfectly consistent. Grace. Marcus lunged at me again. But I loaded a bullet into the chamber, Sage sneered. See, this is the Grace you trust. She caused Vance to be a family ruined and destroyed. And now she's threatening the company's heir. Are you still going to work yourselves to death for her? Marcus said. Grace orchestrated such a human tragedy to seize Vance's assets. Are you still going to aid and abet her? As he finished speaking, I was kicked hard in the back. It was Tina, my most trusted secretary. She had somehow gotten a pocket knife and pressed it directly against my throat. Grace, I'm sorry. The employees exchanged glances, unsure whose side to take. Choosing incorrectly meant losing their jobs and wages. Feeling the cold steel of the knife against my throat, I said, Tina, you couldn't hold back any longer. In my previous life, I never understood how company secrets were leaked, or how an enterprise as large as Vance could have its stock evaporate overnight. Now, I realize with a jolt that the problem had been right beside me all along. How much did Arthur pay you? Was it worth betraying me? When I mentioned Arthur again, Sage became visibly anxious and quickly said, Don't drag others into this. Mr. Arthur is far away in San. His influence doesn't reach that far. It's you, Grace. You've coveted Vance for a long time. Your marriage to Marcus was nothing but an impure act of plunder and theft. What are you standing there for? Lock this woman up. Who dares? Amy walked out from the kitchen. Since she had only one hand, Tina wasn't on guard against her. It wasn't just a wallet left at the scene that day. There was this too. Amy squeezed a business card from her pants pocket and kicked it in front of everyone. How did your business card end up in Mr. Arthur's wallet, Tina? Tina, are you planning to switch jobs, or have you already done so? Marcus sleeping with Arthur's woman was his mistake. But without you as an inside man, how would Arthur have had the chance to harm my entire family? You're the true culprit, everyone. She's the traitor, Amy shouted to the employees. As she finished speaking, with a bang, Sage hit Amy. Tina, run! Amy screamed and fell to the ground. Before I could react, Sage quickly got into a car with Tina, started the car and drove off, leaving Marcus dumbfounded on the spot. Marcus frantically pounded on the car door, but Sage completely ignored him. She even found Marcus in the way, bumped him aside, and drove towards the gate. All that was left for Marcus were the car's exhaust fumes. Sage took a secretary, but didn't take him. Marcus slumped deflated into the yard. I slowly walked towards him. Grace, for the sake of our marriage, please spare my life. I gave a faint smile, walking step by step towards him, watching a layer of sweat beads form on his forehead. Aren't you doing just fine? Harold and Martha are dead. Ethan and Owen are tortured and dismembered. Amy lost an arm, so how can you still be perfectly fine? Before I could finish, Marcus wet himself. You wet yourself already? I scoffed. Killing you is against the law, but if you lose your manhood, it's only about 3 years, because it can be considered a marital dispute, and if I pay bail, I won't have to be locked up for a single day. Marcus was trembling uncontrollably. I beg you, don't castrate me. You just want Vance, don't you? I'll give it to you. I'll transfer it to you. I'll give you whatever you want. I calmly took out divorce papers. Sign this, and the debts are yours. The assets are mine. Hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. Marcus knew what that meant. His face turned ashen, and he shook his head desperately. Grace, you're forcing me to my death. I'll never be able to pay back all this money in my lifetime. I aimed directly at his already wet pants. Marcus's hair was soaked with sweat. He closed his eyes in despair, picked up the pen, and signed the paper. Trembling, Amy sighed beside him, knowing what a good wife Marcus had lost. After the divorce papers were signed, Marcus lay on the ground, drained, panting heavily. I said coldly, "Where are the bodyguards? Lock up your former CEO Marcus first." Marcus looked bewildered and angry. We're already divorced. What right do you have to imprison me? I smiled. Over the years, you've acquired quite a few hidden assets behind my back. I want all of them back, and anything you gave to Sage, which counts as marital assets, I can reclaim that too. Under's despairing gaze, 2 bodyguards came forward, lifted him, and took him towards the basement. 1 slice of bread, 1 cup of water a day. Don't give him anything more until he tells the truth. Leave him to his own devices. Grace, you bitch. You're trying to starve me to death. Grace, will you only be satisfied after you've killed my entire family? I watched the bodyguards drag him into the cellar, following behind, my high heels clicking crisply on the floor. How else will you tell the truth? Besides, Didn't you say you and Sage truly loved each other? Then let's see if the woman you love most will come save you. Marcus was locked up for 3 days and 3 nights. He, who was always pampered, became gaunt and sickly from hunger, and the cellar reeked of excrement and urine. I wore a mask, looking at him through the bars. It's been 3 days, have you seen clearly now? The woman you love most. Not even a shadow of her. How's the list of those hidden assets you secretly acquired coming along? Let me see. Marcus trembled as he handed over a stack of papers, shaking his head. Sage must not know I'm imprisoned, otherwise she would definitely come save me. My eyes didn't leave the papers, but I said, oh, didn't she think about what I might do to you when she left? This has surveillance, and I already sent the video to her work email. She's a workaholic. She couldn't have missed it. Marcus gripped the bars tightly with both hands. Impossible. Impossible. Sage wouldn't do this to me. Unless tells me herself that it's over. I won't believe a word you say. I pulled out my cell phone and thrust the headline news on the screen into his face. Arthur, the wealthiest Chinese man in California, and Sage, a top lawyer in the industry, were married today. The wedding was held in Saipan. Marcus's face turned ashen. He shook his head frantically. No, this isn't real. He punched the wall frantically. She said she only loved me. She must have been forced by Arthur. I scoffed and turned to leave, no longer wanting to see his pathetic, self-deceiving expression. Behind me, Marcus's desperate wails echoed. Yet in my heart, a surge of satisfaction, knowing that revenge is sweet. But the retribution was far from over. My life's savings, lost because of Marcus, had not yet been recovered. I would settle that score by using Marcus as leverage. I had the best sleep since being reborn. The next morning, a bodyguard came to tell me Marcus had a secret to tell me. I put on a jacket and mask and went to the foul-smelling cellar, spit it out. Sage and I have a child. They're being raised at my cousin's place. Aren't you afraid I'll run away? I'll trade the child for my freedom, okay? You can keep the child here, and I'll go see with my own eyes if Sage really married Arthur. I don't believe Sage would betray me. A chill ran through me. I said coldly, Marcus, are you speaking sense? You'd lock your own child in this cold, dark cellar for your mistress? Do you have any humanity left? You're a monster. I'm not. Besides, we aren't officially divorced yet. We just signed an agreement. My hitting you and imprisoning you are all marital disputes, but if I imprison a child, the crime would be much greater, Marcus. Don't think you can make me fall for your trick in any way. As I walked out of the cellar, I instructed my employees to start looking into the child's whereabouts. That evening, Arthur arrived, demanding to see Marcus. Once again, in the mansion yard, Sage, leaning on the tall Arthur, stepped out of a luxury car, with a subtle trace of guilt in her expression. Arthur's other hand held a little girl. Daddy? The girl cried out excitedly when she saw Marcus. Chloe, Daddy's here. Marcus tried to rush over and hug the child but was held back by the bodyguards. I looked directly at Arthur. You want Marcus? Fine. Return all the money you took from Vance, and I'll release him. It wasn't me who slept with your woman. It was Marcus. I've already signed the divorce papers with him. So this has nothing to do with me. Marcus watched Sage nestled in Arthur's arms. Finally realizing he had truly been betrayed, his lips trembled uncontrollably, his fists clenched tightly, and he couldn't help but curse. Sage, you bitch! You're really having an affair with Arthur. Isn't it just about money for you? Wasn't all the money I gave you enough? Sage heard the insults but didn't react. She seemed distracted, as if there was something else she was more anxious about. Sure enough, Arthur suddenly let go of Sage's hand and put his hands into his coat pockets. Marcus, I came here today to ask you something. This child calls Sage mom, but Sage says she's not the biological mother. I'm too lazy to get a paternity test, so I'm asking you today. You tell me, who is this child's biological mother? His expression was murderous, his face cold, and I simply stood by, watching the show. Marcus's expression clearly showed he was desperately thinking. He didn't know what to say or do next. Arthur was ruthless and vicious. Harold and Martha had died mysteriously in prison. Amy had lost a hand, and Ethan and Owen were tortured and dismembered. Marcus feared Arthur was unhinged and wouldn't even spare a child. He subconsciously glanced at Sage. Sage subtly signaled with her eyes and shook her head at him. Her gesture and expression made Marcus completely lose composure. Marcus felt that Sage was afraid the child would affect her social climbing and prevent her from becoming Mrs. Hayes. His face instantly turned livid, his molars clenched tightly, his throat bobbing, and he angrily declared, "This child is Sage's and my illegitimate daughter. Sage. Stop with your delusional fantasy. You abandoned me, and I won't let you off easy either. Arthur's eyes were unreadable. His hand merely brushed his coat pocket. He was silent for a moment, then pulled a knife from his pocket and plunged it into Sage's heart. Sage didn't even have time to react. Her eyes went wide, and she died instantly. This is what happens when you betray me, Arthur said coldly. Mommy. Mommy, Chloe wailed, falling onto Sage's body, trying to stop the bleeding by covering Sage's chest with her hands. The scene was heartbreaking even for me. Tears welled up. The child, after all, was innocent, but in the blink of an eye, the 5 or 6-year-old child suddenly snatched the knife from Arthur's hand, and to everyone's astonishment, she lunged and stabbed at my leg. The bodyguards immediately protected me. Fortunately, Chloe's strength was too little, and Arthur quickly took the knife back from her. Chloe sat on the ground in despair, wailing, "It's all your fault, you bad woman. You stole Daddy. You killed Mommy. Mommy showed me your picture and said you were a bad woman. Give me back my mommy. Give me back my mommy." I stood there in shock, unable to recover for a long time. I had always believed a person's wickedness was acquired, but Chloe made me feel that truly bad seeds exist in this world. She was ruthless and would bully the weak and fear the strong. Instead of attacking Arthur, who killed her mother, she attacked me. Arthur looked at the astonished crowd and said to Marcus, "I apologize for any unintended harm I caused earlier." At that moment, Marcus looked at the dying Sage, still feeling somewhat sad, but he didn't understand why Arthur, this demon, was apologizing. "Why apologize to me?" Arthur said coldly. "Sage told me her relationship with you was forced, and I always thought it was just that one time. So I wanted to kill your entire family to avenge her. I forgave her and even got married and had a wedding with her, but the child's age doesn't match the timeline of that one encounter she mentioned, so there was more than one time between you two. She not only lied to me about this, she even said this child was adopted by you. I cannot tolerate being played by a woman. I trusted her too much. I always thought you were the instigator. I was the one who killed your parents, and I was the one who harmed your sister and 2 brothers." Arthur's tone was terrifyingly calm, as if he hadn't killed people, but a few ants. Marcus gave a cold scoff. "You've done this to me. Do you think an apology will help?" He took a few steps back. Everyone thought he was distraught and had lost his mind, but he suddenly charged at Arthur, bit his ear, and with his other hand clawed at Arthur's eye, blinding him. Arthur's bodyguard immediately shot Marcus in the head. Marcus, like a stunned animal, was thrown to the ground by Arthur. Arthur clutched his eye and ear, ordering his bodyguard to clean the scene. Chloe was completely terrified, her mouth agape, too shocked to even cry. Suddenly, police sirens wailed. I had already entered my room and locked the door from the inside. From behind me, Arthur's enraged cry of pain echoed. "Grace, you went back on your word. Grace, you called the police." This time, Arthur wasn't so lucky. He was caught red-handed and was unable to escape. I glanced at my bank card. $1 billion had already been deposited. Just yesterday, I exchanged Chloe's secret and the children's whereabouts for that $1 billion. Arthur had promised me he wouldn't harm the children, only wanting to get to the bottom of things. Initially, I had reservations, but the moment Chloe attacked me with a knife, all my hesitations vanished. The yard was quickly forensically examined and cleared. I knew it was time to move out of this jinxed house. Later, I learned Marcus was so lucky to be alive. He hadn't died, only suffered central nervous system damage, resulting in high paraplegia. He had the prison guard contact the TV station, mobilizing the media to demand to see me. When I saw him again, only his head could move. He was like a helpless mass slumped in his wheelchair. "I don't want Chloe to go to an orphanage. Grace, can you take her in?" His gaze was pleading, his tone sincere. I scoffed. "Marcus, when Chloe attacked me, did you forget? What gave you the impression I would raise the child of a big devil? Another little devil?" Marcus trembled. "Grace, stop playing tough. I know you still care about me, otherwise, why did you call the police that day? Weren't you afraid Arthur would kill me? Otherwise, who did you call the police for? For? How could that be? What if you admit you still care about me?" I sneered. "Marcus, have you been in prison too long? Developed a delusional fantasy? You're curious why I called the police? Fine, I'll tell you. I exchanged Chloe for $1 billion. But Arthur is treacherous and ruthless. I was afraid H take the money again, afraid H kill me to silence me, and even more afraid of his retaliation. So, This was all my plan, my looking on and doing nothing when it came to your parents, and my watching indifferently when it came to your brothers. These were all part of the plan, because I was reborn, and the cause of my death in my previous life was your whole Vance family's betrayal, understand? Under's horrified gaze, I gracefully turned and walked away. I changed Vance to Grace, and moved the headquarters from the US to Europe. 2 years later, Grace became the largest leading multinational corporation in Europe and the US. Standing on my yacht, sipping 80 to Lafite, I suddenly remembered Marcus's look, as if he died with lingering resentment. Without a ripple of emotion, I calmly leaned into the young man's embrace, living life to the fullest, enjoying every moment. Life without villains tying me down is truly amazing.